So today's topic is the State Board of Agriculture and the State Agriculture Convention. As you may know, the annual State Agriculture Convention is happening next month in Atlantic City. So this topic was chosen to be our first topic in January for that reason. My name is Janine Cava. I'm the lead facilitator of New Jersey Food Democracy Collaborative. And I'll be one of the co-hosts for today's Lunch and Learn. I'm joined by my colleague, Fatima Niangado. She's the co-host and a member of the NJFDC Advisory Board.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fatima, and I'm super excited to be here with you all. Also, thank you for taking the time out of your day to be here today. NJFDC is a New Jersey statewide food policy council. Like all FPCS, FDC is a network of organizations and individuals from different parts of the food and farming system who come together over shared goals and a vision for improving local and regional food systems through a combination of collaboration, community projects, and policy change. We're fortunate today to be joined by a panel of esteemed guests from the world of New Jersey agriculture. Starting with Joel Viereck. He's an accomplished agriculture leader and farm operations manager at Viereck Farms LLC, an 800-acre family-run operation specializing in high-quality vegetables, fruits, and grains. Joel is a former president of the Vegetable Growers Association of New Jersey, where he championed research, education, and policies to sustain and grow the industry. He serves on the New Jersey State Board of Agriculture, representing vegetable growers and advocating for statewide farming initiatives. Joel's leadership extends to the Gloucester County Agricultural Development Board and New Jersey Farm Bureau, where he collaborates with farmers and policymakers to address agriculture challenges. His commitment to fostering collaboration and driving progress reflects his dedication to the long-term success of New Jersey agriculture. We also have Lisa Specca here today with us, and she is a licensed professional planner in New Jersey, providing expert services to municipal boards, state and county governments, nonprofits, and regional planning agencies. She specializes in rural and environmental planning, farmland and open space preservation, natural resource inventories, and transfer of development rights. As a farmer and partner in Specca Farms, a 125-acre preserved family operation specializing in direct marketing fruits and vegetables, Lisa offers a unique perspective on rural challenges. She served 9 years on the State Agricultural Development Committee, which oversees the New Jersey Farmland Preservation Program, and was elected to her township governing body and planning board. Currently vice president of the New Jersey State Board of Agriculture, she has testified as an expert witness in solar energy litigation and frequently speaks on solar energy and farmland preservation. She is also an Eisenhower Fellow for Agriculture and a New Jersey Agriculture Leadership Development Program alumnus.
Lisa, if you want to unmute and say hi, feel free. And we're waiting on Joel to join us, but I'm sure he'll there.
Hello, everybody.
Okay. And then we have Stephen Lee. Stephen is a 6th-generation cranberry grower from Chatsworth, New Jersey, Lee Brothers, Inc. The family business he runs with his father has been part of the grower-owned cooperative of Ocean Spray Cranberries since 1952. With the help of innovative machinery and unique cultural practices, the Lees have become one of the country's most efficient cranberry farming operations. Before working on the farm full-time, he worked in management capacities with ITT Sheraton, Marriott, and Doubletree Hotels. A graduate of Widener University, Stephen is the past president of the Cranberry Growers Association, former member of the Washington Township Board of Education, the past president of the Burlington County Board of Agriculture, past chair and vice chair of Tabernacle Township Land Development Board, mayor and deputy mayor emeritus of the Township of Tabernacle, past chair of Cranberry Marketing Committee, and he currently serves New Jersey farmers on the USDA Farm Service Agency Executive Committee and the New Jersey State Board of Agriculture. Stephen, do you want to say hi to everyone?
Thanks for having me.
And sorry for mispronouncing your name in the beginning. I'm so sorry.
That's all good.
Yes, and thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Fatima. So we're also joined by two additional farmers, Jennifer LaMonica and Jessica Niederer. So I'll start with Jen. Jen LaMonica owns and operates Walking Bird Farm, which features an on-farm retail market, a membership program, and a pick-your-own operation. She manages crop plans, greenhouses, record keeping, field work, harvest schedules, employee hiring, finances, and the farm's website and social media. Jen grew up in Trenton and holds a marine science degree. She previously worked in coastal, wetlands, and fisheries before shifting to agriculture. After apprenticing on a farm, she started her own business, renting land from her husband's uncle, Art Brown, a former New Jersey Secretary of Agriculture, who mentored her. A decade later, Jen purchased the farm and now owns 20 acres while renting an additional 20. She serves as president of the Atlantic County Board of Agriculture. Jen and her husband, Ryan, a graphic designer and farmer, live and work year-round on the farm with their 2 dogs, embracing the dream of farm life. And Jen fails to mention where your farm's in Atlantic County, and it's either in Galloway or Egg Harbor Township. I can never remember. To me, they're the same place. But if you want to unmute, you're muted. If you want to unmute and say hi real quick.
Hi, Galloway Township, Atlantic County.
One of them. And last but certainly not least, Jess Niederer. Jess grew up on the 80-acre Niederer family farm on Titus Mill Road in Pennington, New Jersey. She graduated from Cornell with a degree in natural resources and worked in conservation biology, ornithology, disaster relief, and development work. After traveling far and wide during her college years, Jess started Chickadee Creek Farm in 2010. Today, she owns and operates the farm with a dedicated farm team. Jess is a member of the newly formed New Jersey Organic and Regenerative Farming Board, which meets quarterly and reports to the State Board of Agriculture. They currently have a survey out in cooperation with Rutgers Cooperative Extension, which perhaps Jess can speak about later, time permitting, or share a link to that survey for any organic or regenerative farmers in this webinar to complete. So thank you very much, Jess, for joining us. If we get Joel at some point, we'll make sure to let everyone know that he's joined. So thank you all so much for taking the time to do this afternoon. This webinar, like we said before, is being recorded and it will be uploaded to our YouTube channel at a later date. Before we get started, just a reminder, it's a webinar, so everyone who's not a panelist is muted. You can use the chat feature, and when it comes time to, you can use the Q&A tool on your toolbar as well. Now is a great time, if you haven't already done so, to share your name and affiliation and/or where you're joining from in the chat. And we have three really quick, we have a really quick 3-question poll to give us a sense of who is in the room today. So you should have seen, you should see a poll that popped up on your screen. Does everyone see that? Thumbs up if you can see it. Awesome. Okay, so if you want to just take a couple seconds to share, so we can all get a sense of who's here. Have you ever attended New Jersey Agriculture Convention? Or are you planning to for the first time? And have you ever attended either in person or through the remote option, the State Board of Agriculture meetings? Okay. So we can see this happening in real time. We have 88% of people who participated. So if you're in that last small percentage, feel free to please answer those questions. And I'm going to end the poll. So speak now or forever hold. Okay. So can you see the results here? Is everyone able to see the horizontal bar graphs here? Fatima, thumbs up if you can see it. Can you see the, yes, okay. So we have, and you can answer more than one. So some people might be farmers and local food advocates and in the farm to food supply chain, or farm to table supply chain. Some interested folks. We have the vast majority of people have not attended Ag Convention. About 10% of people plan to go for the first time next month. And most people have not attended a monthly board event. So this is kind of the perfect audience, right? Because it's a bunch of learners. We're definitely going to move people. We're going to increase understanding of these topics, and that's what the whole purpose is to do. So thank you for everyone for having taken the poll. All right, so we're going to jump right in. And Fatima is going to start with the first question. And just in the interest of time, for most questions, there will probably only be time for one or two people to respond. So for the panelists, I mean, I guess we'll have to make sure it's evenly distributed and everyone gets a chance to answer some questions. Okay. Okay, Fatima, go ahead. You're muted. Sorry.
Sorry, can you guys hear me? Okay. The first question is for any of the state board members. What is the official role of the state board?
I'm going to defer to the senior member of the state board, Vice President Specca.
Thank you, Steve. Maybe we can tag team a little. The official role of the state board is sort of multifaceted. The first and foremost responsibility is to the ag community to bring forth the concerns from the county level, grassroots organizations, up to the state policy making level, through the Department of Agriculture, interfacing with the legislature, so that the concerns of the ag community, issues, priorities have a voice, both in state government, in the administration, and also through our elected officials. To that end, the state board members are selected from the two caucuses divided north and south in New Jersey to balance the north and south interests. And it's an 8-member board that serves for 4 years each. The board is responsible for overseeing the Department of Agriculture, and in fact, even selects the Secretary of Agriculture with the consent of the governor and, of course, the advice and consent of the Senate. So the state board has, a number of roles, mostly and most importantly, like I said, to advocate for the ever-increasing concerns and needs of the agriculture community in New Jersey. You want to add to that, Steve?
I think that was summed up very nicely. The one thing I think is worth noting is that we are the only department in state government where the people have direct oversight of the operations of said department. When you have delegates that are going to be meeting next week to talk about ag issues, it's our responsibility as board members to bring those to the table and get them accomplished. It's really a great model to where we have farmers have direct oversight and responsibility for operations of a state department. It's very, very unique. We're one of the few states in the union that have that ability. But it's important that farmers, I think, participate in the process is the most key point. 72% of the folks who are on this call have never been to an ag convention. And to see what's going to happen next week, I'm encouraged that folks are coming, and I'm encouraged to see the participants that we'll see. And I'd like to welcome Joel Viereck, our colleague. And it's good to see Joel. Glad he was able to make it.
I've been here for about a half hour, so trying to log in, so it's been fun.
So hopefully you heard us introduce you.
Yeah, I did.
You know about yourself, so that's okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And Joel comes to us. Joel is one of our newest members. Joel came from represents the vegetable industry, and he's a past chair of the Vegetable Growers Association. So he's actually had dual leadership roles, and most recently is running one organization coming on board with us. So he's one of our colleagues that we certainly depend on to bring that particular component to the board.
Excellent. Thanks, Joel, for joining us.
Thank you for the feedback. The next question would be, it can be a bit confusing to understand the relationship between the state board and the New Jersey Department of Agriculture as part of the administrative branch of state government. Do any of you want to take a shot at explaining that relationship?
Yeah, a little bit more. You touched on it, Lisa and Steve both touched on it, but maybe I think it warrants a little bit more parsing out. And we could pick somebody, or
Steve, do you want to continue to elaborate on what you were talking about before, the sort of unique position that New Jersey's in?
To give you an example, I got on the board in July of last year, and we didn't have a Secretary of Agriculture. And one of the responsibilities by statute is that the State Board of Agriculture has to select the secretary with consent of the governor. So what that means is that we can go through the process of interviewing candidates. We can have a secretary that we really like, or the farming community really likes. But if the governor doesn't consent, because it's a cabinet position, we have to go find somebody else. And so the relationship is very, very critical between the governor's office and our state board. And by the way, the Assembly and the Senate. It's one of the few places where farmers, in this case, or basically citizens, have the ability to be able to have direct contact and direct communication with lawmakers. It's one of the really unique places we're able to do that. It was a great experience to go ahead and select our secretary, but by the same token, it's a lot of work, and what he's doing requires a lot of work. But there has to be a partnership between the governor's office as well as the Assembly and the Senate, mainly because it is indeed a cabinet position. It's not a commissioner. It's not a politically appointed commissioner. It's a cabinet position that's appointed by us.
And Joel, I don't know if you have anything to add, but I would just say, other than that's a really important responsibility of the board, but that probably happens not all that frequently, we would hope. So on the sort of month to month, year in, year out, are there other, key responsibilities of the state board that you think folks should know about?
Like they said, I'm the newest one to the board here, so I'm also learning a lot of what our role is, and it does seem as if another Steve touched on is definitely our relationship with the legislators and everything like that, and that really is a big part of this that we're jumping into. And also, there's a lot of within the state board, we have a lot of committees that we're also working with, and behind the scenes, that allows us to reach out to different legislators and kind of get an idea of how we want to represent the industry best. And I think the biggest part of it is being a state board member, at least what I've seen since July, is just you're a voice for everybody in ag, and everybody relies on you, whether, to speak for them and to talk to, everybody on this behalf, because not all of us that farm get off the farms enough to be able to have access to these legislators and everything like that. And it is quite a responsibility, and it's been interesting. But the thing I can tell everybody, what I've learned as a board member here so far, is that legislators are very much, they want to hear our stories, they want to know what it is that our needs are, and they're happy to facilitate when possible. And that's the biggest part of this that I've taken away from it so far.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that one thing. An initiative that the state board has really felt passionately about ever since I've been on the board, and it's going on 4 years now, is farm machinery on the roads and the real danger that is posed by people who are just too impatient to slow down or to move over and give farm vehicles, especially very wide, large farm vehicles during the harvest season, safe room to travel on the roads. And we've been trying to figure out a way that we can get the public of New Jersey to understand that they really need to be respectful. And Andrea Katz, who is an assemblywoman, has just introduced legislation that would require the department to disseminate information to drivers' education, maybe even the state police, so that there will be attention to this very serious issue to agriculture, because many people are involved in accidents when people are just too impatient to slow down and let a tractor go down the road. So that kind of grassroots initiative is something that, you know, I really feel the state board has a big effect. And that's one example of a piece of legislation that could go a long way to really ensuring better safety on the roadways.
That's a really great tangible example. So essentially what I hear you saying is that the state board is kind of like I don't know if conduit is the right word, but it's a mechanism for farmers to approach you, come to the monthly meetings, talk about, you know, during public comment period, talk about, you know, some of their concerns, and then you use that to inform, you know, what you discussed with legislators, and you sort of use that to understand what are some of the priority issues, and use your position to try to find solutions to those things.
Well,
yeah.
I was gonna say, it's not even just there. I don't know if they touched on it briefly while I was switching links, but we all have county boards that we represent. So like I have Gloucester and Salem County, Lisa and Steve, they also have multiple counties that they go to. And that when you bring up being a conduit, that's part of it is we go to our county boards, we listen to what's, you know, told to us there. We also bring that in. So it's not necessarily, I mean, we encourage anybody for public comment, obviously, but part of this does start from us with our being liaisons to our county boards and doing that. And that helps facilitate, get the information flowing as well.
So it's as if we practice this. That's my next question. So that leads us perfectly into the next question, which is that the relationship between State Board of Agriculture and the county boards of agriculture, for those who are not really well versed coming up through this community, it can be confusing as well. In what I've learned from recently for the past couple of years being an officer of my county board of ag in Ocean County, is that whereas obviously state board of ag is part of government and the Department of Agriculture is part of state government, the county boards of agriculture are non-governmental. They're totally, you know, private, non-governmental entities. And so if any of you, and this can be for anyone, you know, Jess or Jen or any of the members of the state board, if you want to take a shot at explaining in as simple ways as you possibly can the connection between the county boards of ag and the state board, and sort of as a follow-up, how do county board members participate in shaping and informing agriculture policy? So anything related to that subject matter. I don't know if maybe you want to start with a non-member of the board and pivot to a member. So, you know, if Jess or Jen, you want to start with that one?
I could take that one. So as a farmer, you can join the New Jersey Farm Bureau, and New Jersey Farm Bureau is an advocacy group for farmers, and they focus on policy issues and other issues that are important to agriculture. So you become a New Jersey Farm Bureau member, and you automatically become a member of your county board. There's also the executive committee of county boards of agriculture. So I am the president of Atlantic County Board of Agriculture and serve on that executive committee, which has about 25 executive members. Now, Atlantic County can have over 100 different farmers on the county board, but there's only a few that are on that executive committee. So that's what seems to be confusing for people when you say, if I'm a Farm Bureau member, then I'm automatically on the county board. Yes, you're on the county board, but you don't have membership in the executive committee. So with that executive committee, basically we serve as delegates to Department of Agriculture, to Farm Bureau, to Rutgers Cooperative Extension, and we also provide input to our local legislators, regulators, and serve as delegates to the State Agricultural Convention, if that helps explain it. Jess, if you want to jump in a little on that.
And we'll unpack some more of that in some additional questions, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I could say is that each county board of ag has its own bylaws and constitution that they make. So for my county board of ag, the bylaws do state that the membership should be made of 50% farmers and that those farmers shall be members of Farm Bureau. It is probably entirely possible that some county boards of ag don't have it as the requirement that the members be Farm Bureau members. So that is something that, a county board could scrub from its bylaws requirement at the next time they decide to amend bylaws. Just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying that. Each county board does have their own separate set of bylaws. So yeah, for Atlantic County, all of our members do have to be New Jersey Farm Bureau members.
Yeah. And then the other thing I would just say, just as like sort of painting a bigger picture for the participants on the call, is that if you think of the way in the US representative government works, there's larger bodies at the bottom who vote for the people who form smaller bodies in decision-making ways. And the largest body of decision makings, like the most populous, would be county board level, who are working together to send delegates to the ag convention that's coming from the county board. They're also at the county board level voting on who to put forward for state board of ag positions in their own North and South Jersey caucus meetings. So county board is kind of like that feeder population of where decision making starts at the most, grassroots level.
And also the county boards are monthly meetings, and we get together to talk about issues that are affecting us on the farms. And from there, you have a representative from state board like Steve Lee, and then he will go back to the state board and say, hey, this is what's going on in Atlantic County. And it starts growing from there.
Okay, great. And I think, Steve, you wanted to add something, or Joel? Do you have anything to add? Go right ahead.
And I think it's a key point that Jen just brought up. It's our responsibility to listen to the county boards that we represent. That's the most important piece. To give you an example, Camden County, who's one of the other counties I represent, said we would like to have some dialogue with Burlington County, Atlantic County, perhaps Gloucester. And because of that, we're having a joint meeting between the Atlantic, Camden and Burlington County boards at the Ag Convention. We're having an informal breakfast on Wednesday morning to talk about issues, to kind of have the membership meet each other and talk about different things that they have joint issues with. So that's an example of where we listened, we're taking action, and we connect the dots. And that's the most important part of our job, is to listen to our constituents, because at the end of the day, that's who we represent.
Yeah, and I just want to add too. I mean, I think everybody's touched on it, and even prematurely a little bit I did in the last day. But the county boards are the grassroots of all, like, where this all starts. And it's not just even with Farm Bureau, being involved with it too. It's also other organizations, like for instance, where I come from with vegetable growers, all of our directors to vegetable growers had to be approved through the county boards. So there's a lot happens at that level. And that's where, really, to stress anybody, if you're looking to get involved with ag and like have a little bit definitely get involved with your county boards first. And then it all sort of does come from there. It's very important. Like I can say, it was about 10, 11 years ago is when I finally first started going to the meetings and everything like that. And it really does get you involved. A lot what's going on. And it's nice to hear what the other farmers have to say. And then that's where my knowledge of a lot of this has all come from, and just seeing how pivotal it is just to have, because you have a representative from Farm Bureau there, you have somebody from the NJDA there, you have a state board member there, and then there's just different guests, and it's just a nice way to start networking and allowed to do that. And what I would encourage everybody to do is try to become delegates, try to get involved in the other things peripheral to the county boards, and really make a network from there and learn about everything. And then Rutgers, as well as the extension agents, are always at the meetings as well. So it's a good way to definitely learn. So
Thanks for
So
that,
did you
Joel.
want to add something?
Yeah, Lisa has something.
Yeah, I would ask if Jen and Jessica could explain how one goes about getting on the executive board at the county level.
Or even county, being part of the county board consistently, showing up to meetings, because we have heard, and I know this differs from county to county, it can be difficult to find reliable information about when and where they're meeting, or if meetings are canceled. And I will say it was easy for me to be a little critical of that from the outside, but now that I'm the secretary of my county board and I'm busy doing a zillion other things, I'm guilty as charged with not giving a ton. Lisa knows, nodding her head, not giving a ton of notice of when our county board meetings are either. So go ahead, sorry.
Now, I think that each county, has a little different culture. So if you could explain, so if, let's say you just decide, I'm going to go to the Joint Farm Bureau, go to the county board meeting, listen a few times, but how do I actually get involved? How do I become part of that executive?
In Atlantic County, you show up to the meetings, and annually we vote on executive committee members. So 2 weeks from now, we are going to have our annual meeting where all members of Atlantic County who are part of the Farm Bureau membership can attend, listen to our annual business report, and then we elect new people to our executive committee. So we take on 6 new members annually to a 1-year term, and thereafter we elect officers either on an annual or with president, it's every 2 years. And then we have a secretary and a treasurer and a vice president. In addition to that, as a president or vice president, you are automatically a delegate to the state convention. And the state convention is where we set a policy agenda for the year through a resolution process. And that's what we're going to be doing at the Atlantic City Convention next week.
And we have a question, we have a set of questions specifically about that. So Jess or anyone, do you have anything to add about, in response to Lisa's question before we move on?
Yeah, sure. So I think I started going to our county board meetings back in 2010, and I found out about them and where to go and when to go from my county extension agent's office. Typically that person is going to know when and where those meetings are because they're probably attending them. Another place to call and find out when and where the meetings are the main Farm Bureau office in Trenton. They will also know where they all are. And I laughed a little bit when asked, like, well, how do you become an executive board member? At the Mercer meeting, if they get fresh blood in there, like, you have very little time before you are on the executive board, because we are happy when new people are excited and become involved. So there's not much to it in Mercer. In Mercer, the executive board of the county board is 15 members on 3-year terms, and there's a nominating committee within the board that seeks the fresh blood and makes sure that they're willing to sign up. And then every October we have our annual reorganizational meeting where new people are dragged into it. Though I have to say, it took me a little bit to figure out that that's the way things were there, and that there was even an executive board dynamic within that meeting, because within that meeting, before being on the executive board, I was never given the sense that my input and my voice on a matter wasn't as important as anybody else there. So I will say that as a thumbs up about the type of room it is.
Right, and I think you're right to say that it does differ, and you touched on this, Jen, from county to county. Every county has its own bylaws, and so that makes each county board could be quite different. And I'm sure members of the state board and members of Farm Bureau can have the best bird's eye view of just how different each county board could be, or similar maybe to each other. I wouldn't know. Okay, so thank you for that. We're going to move on. Fatima has the next question. Thank you for that.
Next question is regarding two events that are happening next month in the same place and time, which are the New Jersey Fruit and Vegetable Growers Convention and the New Jersey State Agriculture Convention. Can you tell us about these events, what they're for, and what happens there?
Yes, should I take that one, guys, or?
Yep.
All right. So I'll start from the top. Even though that they're co-located events, they both serve two vastly different purposes. The vegetable growers side of it is a trade show in partner with Rutgers to offer pesticide credits and learning opportunities for the farmers. Where on the state convention side, that's where, as we've talked about, the delegates are convened. There is some offerings of some different programs and whatnot while we're there, but they are two different separate events that are going on simultaneously at the same time. And it's a wealth of things that are going on there. It's definitely something to take in. And we've this year we've done some things that hopefully kind of split the time up so that a delegate can, take part in the trade show and in the offerings that Rutgers has. That's like the shortest, briefest way I can get into it. I mean, there is a lot more different things going on, but that's generally the idea. And this year we did, like I said, it did move a little bit where there is a little bit more of a line in the sand as to where certain things start and stop to make it a little bit easier for everybody to, participate. Because as the vegetable growers president last year, one of the concerns that I got from a lot of people was, as a delegate, they weren't able to take part in what necessarily went on down there because they were doing their delegate duties. So this year we did break that up a little bit, and seems like that's been somewhat well received. Hopefully it works out well for that. But definitely on the state side, though, with the resolution setting the policy for the year to come and all the offerings with that, and a chance to meet with legislators and all that, it's a huge opportunity for any grower to be a part of down there and take part in. So
I have a quick question before anyone else adds on to that, and that was really helpful, Joel. Like, if you're not a delegate and you registered for the Fruit and Vegetable Growers Convention, so you're in that space, as you mentioned, they're co-located at the convention center in Atlantic City. Are you permitted to go into the convention to just sit as a listener and listen to the resolution making process, pick up a copy of the resolutions book and start to get acclimated to the whole process? If not, then I was doing something wrong last year, but
yeah.
is that allowed?
If you're there, everything to do with the state convention is open to the public. You're able to be there for that. It's the vegetable grower trade show side of it where it's an admission type thing, and that's what works there. So it's that's where the confusion comes in, because they're co-located. You're not barred from the state side of anything. Like even our board meeting that we'll have down there, that's open to the public. Everything on the state side is open to the public, but once you cross over to the vegetable grower side, that's when there's registrations needed for that and everything. Now, if you're a delegate, you have to be registered for that as well, but public can come in and listen to anything that's going on.
I'll just add to Joel to make it a little bit clearer that the Vegetable Growers Association is a membership. So you don't have to be a member of the New Jersey Vegetable Growers Association, but most vegetable growers are. And what that does is get you access to the educational sessions that Rutgers puts on as well.
Well, actually, they changed that this year, Jen. Now,
oh gosh, sorry.
That was a little bit of my didn't know. There's a membership to be part of vegetable growers now, and then the trade show is a separate admission on top of that. Because before, a lot of the members were getting confused. I know I'm wearing my vegetable grower hat a little bit too much right now, but yeah, that was part of it. Now there's a straight membership just to be a vegetable growers member, and that doesn't necessarily allow you into the trade show. That's a separate fee on top of it. It's still cheaper than it was combined the prior year, but we had a lot of people, that was a lot of the feedback we were getting. People didn't understand, well, if I'm, what I'm actually buying. So yeah, now there's a membership for that. And then there's an admission to the trade show. And I believe there is a line on there where you can sign up just to enter the trade show, but it's at a higher price you don't necessarily have to be a vegetable growers member. So, and there is delegate membership. I'd have to go look at the website. Like I said, I haven't been president since July. So, but this was some of the stuff that we put into motion to try to, make it a little bit easier on everybody. So I didn't mean to cut you off. We had, like with all the other changes, there was some changes to that.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
glad
that's
we're talking about it.
important to note for everybody, and certainly keep us all in line, because it's a lot to keep track of. So
Right.
yeah, thanks for clearing that up.
I think it's helpful too, because if you want to go, like I purchased a non-vegetable grower association member association ticket to the Vegetable Growers Association, and I don't have an interest in the trade show. So to me, I maybe saved a little bit of money by not purchasing the trade show ticket because I don't intend to go to the trade show. So there's that aspect of it as well. And we do have, I mean, just in under a minute, Joel, or anyone, if you want to talk about like what are the reasons to, besides the obvious ones, like what are the motivations to join the Vegetable Growers Association? You can join your county board of ag, but this is an additional association to be a part of. If you're a vegetable grower, why?
I guess the biggest reason to join the vegetable, it's just it's another group of outreach, and the money goes towards helping them with their efforts to speak on behalf of. Now they'll speak to both state and federal legislators. They'll talk to both sides of it a little bit more so than some of the other, but they have their own things. They do work with Rutgers throughout the year with different like twilight meetings, stuff like that. So the membership there, I can't really speak to what the leadership's doing with it, but in the past that's what we did. I mean, they have quarterly meetings and stuff like that too, where they'll bring everybody up to date on things. But it's like any other organization, they have their initiatives and their mission that they do. But like I said, I'm not exactly sure what at this point is definitely what they're focused on.
Yeah, that is an option for if you're a specialty crop
But it
grower.
helps the vegetable growing industry as a whole.
Right. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for that. That was a really great response, really robust. So I'm gonna just move on to this question of the term delegate. Okay. So as many of you know, in 2023 and 2024, New Jersey Food Democracy Collaborative was engaged in a series of structured conversations with farmers in order to produce the New Jersey's first baseline assessment of beginner and socially disadvantaged producers. And we found in those conversations that this term delegate was not well understood, and neither was the resolution making process, even less so. And so to the extent that we can in the next 5 minutes, we can shed some light on, well, Jess already, you already talked about how to become a delegate to the convention, but there might be some more to add there, because we talked about it through the county boards of ag, but there are other ways to become a delegate to the convention. And so how does someone become a delegate? What is a delegate? And then I guess the next logical part of that question would be like, what are resolutions? What do they do? What happens after a resolution is passed at convention? That whole process. So I know that's a lot. The delegate and resolution piece are sort of two sides of the same coin. So maybe Steve or Lisa want to start that one off, and then we can pivot to someone who wants to add maybe anything they missed.
I'll start. I'll kick off, and Steve join in, and Joel. So I don't know exactly how many delegates there are. Do you know, Steve?
I was afraid you were going to ask me that. One of the questions in the chat is, can more than one delegate represent a county? The answer is yes. There's, I believe there's 2 and 2. You have 2 delegates, 2 alternates.
And the counties are not the only organizations that are represented as delegates. Many of the Friends of Agriculture, farming related, like vegetable growers, trade community organizations, they all have delegates to the convention. So, anybody with a stake in the game, has a voice at the convention, and the delegates are sent from all those individual organizations. The county process is a lot more formal because you have so many members of the county board, the executive board, and so they select the president, vice president, if those want to serve, and then 2 alternates. So the delegates meet and vote on the resolutions. So there's a room full of people that are appointed to be leaders from their sector of agriculture that convene once a year at the convention. And all the resolutions are read. Changes can be made from the floor. This is a democratic process, and it's a policy setting process for the next year's policy agenda for ag. So that's an overview.
Yeah, that's a good one. It helps form the policy agenda for ag. And so maybe Steve, whatever you're going to add, but like.
Yeah, it's the
focusing on
responsibility
ag.
of our board to respond back to the delegates. We did that at the end of the fall. We went through each of the resolutions. We had different members that paired off that were responsible for reporting back to the delegates what the progress was of those resolutions. By the way, legislators also read the resolutions. They also read the resolutions from the Farm Bureau Convention. That helps give them an idea where the farm community stands on particular issues that they encounter. So it's a very important document that not only is for our delegation and the board members, but also for folks, lawmakers on the outside that are trying to work with us.
Excellent. Okay. Does anyone have anything to add to that?
Yeah,
or we
Janine,
can-
oh, sorry.
No, go
I just like to add that this serving as a delegate is an entirely volunteer process. We don't get paid to be on committees. We're working our full-time jobs, and all of us are doing this because we believe in what we're doing, and that it's important to get our message across. And the resolutions are the farmers, the industry asks. And I have a copy of this resolution book here. If you can see this, this is
Jen brought a prop. Kudos.
it's a prop.
Yeah.
It's 100 and what are we looking at? 275 pages of resolutions. And it's not a simple process. There's a lot of work that goes into this on behalf of the resolutions committee to pull this together for us all to get together as delegates and to vote on this, to make changes on it, to listen to people from the floor if they have anything they want to add, change. And it's important to be a part of that process. So we definitely encourage people to get involved and learn about it. It takes a little time to understand everything, but once you're in it, you really have a lot of power in connecting with your legislators to get them to listen to what you have to say.
Yeah. And it can feel sort of daunting to get involved in, to flex that democratic muscle as a citizen, but this is a good way to start, just through your job or your passion for agriculture. It's a good way to start. Okay, great. So we're going to move on to these next questions are geared toward Jennifer and Jessica, but anyone can jump in. Fatima has the next question.
Okay, our next question is for Jennifer and Jessica. Do you recall how you first learned of and started attending your county board of agriculture? And if so, can you share a little about that experience, what it was like becoming a member of your county board?
And like as a follow-up to that, like any advice or guidance you have and you both touched on this a little bit before, but for those people who might be listening and have never been to their county board, or maybe have had a little bit of a less than welcoming experience in the past, or maybe those folks on the call who are just planning to go to a convention for the first time next week. If you want to tell a little bit about your origin stories there, and anyone getting involved in this space.
Jess, you want to go first?
Well, I feel like my video or sound might have cut out earlier, but I feel like I explained how I had first gotten involved with my county board. And then in our county board, typically it's the vice president and president who are taking their turn to go be delegates at the ag convention, though that could be done differently at all the different boards. But when I was vice president and then president of my county board, that's when I was, sent off to do the ag convention delegate role and played a part in the resolutions committee on the state level. And I would just echo what Jen said, that it really does take a chunk of time to meaningfully participate in that resolutions process. I mean, you could just sit along and keep your mouth shut, but then what's the point, really? Like if you're gonna actually be involved, you should plan to do a lot of reading and piping up a bit about your opinions. And one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting was that your county board is kind of putting a lot of faith in you to be speaking on their behalf in those situations. You know, you're not on the resolutions committee and then coming back to your county board with each little thing that's coming up. You are kind of on your own representing your county in that committee. And the same goes, you know, on the voting floor at the convention. You have to remember that you're not just exactly just a free agent speaking on your own behalf. You're using the vote of your whole county when you're out there, but your county's not there helping you decide how to vote either. I think that's probably all I have to say in response to that,
Yeah.
Janine.
I think that you did a good job of speaking on how it's a big responsibility. You're not there representing yourself. You're speaking on behalf of your delegation, the organization you're representing, or your county. So that's something really important to note. Anyone else have anything to add about, I know, you know, Jess has said a lot about Mercer County and how welcoming they are to new members, but does anyone have anything they want to talk about specific to their county board and getting involved?
I'll just say that it's intimidating for a new member with very little farming experience. Maybe you've only been farming for a year or two and you're hearing a lot about joining your county board or going to the board meetings. Find somebody that you know, link up with somebody and just go with them. There are several people that said, oh, I don't know, it's not for me. Just say, come along with me, sit next to me, and just sit and listen. And it's, you know, you pick it up as you go along. I think if you just stick with it and learn the lay of the land, you figure it out as you go along how to get involved. But for quite a while in Atlantic County, I was the lone female, and for a long time I was just known as the girl. But like Jess said, you got to speak up. If you got something to say, you're there for a reason. Just put your big pants on and go.
Good advice. Yeah. Yeah. So actually, I'm looking at the next few questions we have. There's 2 additional questions that we have, and we have already covered them. They were just sort of things that you all one or another answered as part of your other responses. So I think I'll first turn it over to the panelists and see, is there anything that you wanted to be asked that we didn't ask, or anything else you want to share? And then after that, we can pivot to Q&A. So anything that you want to say and speak on or expand on that we've already asked, or anything new you think is important to bring up, that'd be a good time.
I have a quick thing to bring up, and this is for our state board members. I had looked for and shared, and it seems like the link is working now in the chat, just a list of who has a delegate seat at the convention. And there was a line on that legislation that said that the state board can assign somebody a delegate voting seat. And I was wondering if any of you have been on the board when the state board has been asked to consider allowing a delegate voting seat, and if you could talk about that.
Steve, didn't we just do that last year
Yeah, we did.
for the Food Shed Alliance?
Yeah, we just did it for Food Shed Alliance.
Yeah.
Jess, don't you already know that answer?
Yeah, she was prompting it. So that actually
got
happened through the application process. So it was 2 years ago at Ag Convention that I went for the first time, and I was like, oh, how do you become a delegate? You know, and so I asked somebody at lunch. It might have been Joe Atchison, Assistant Secretary Joe Atchison. And he said, oh, there's a link on the Department of Ag website. It goes through all the rules of how you become a delegate and what sort of criteria you need to meet. And so I read that, and then we had shared it around. I think it's on the Food Democracy Collaborative website, and I shared it, and I think that's how Food Shed Alliance, you know, probably found out about it, and they went through that application process. But it seems to me that doesn't happen all that often. Is that something that happens fairly regularly, that new delegates will apply to become delegates, or is it
there's a lot of delegates. There's a lot of organizations that are represented, and I think as new emerging organizations start to be formed and have different concerns, that they can join that application process. It doesn't happen a lot, not in my experience, but it doesn't seem to be a closed shop.
That's
I
a good
think
question.
I think the takeaway from a lot of it is, though, that really the ag industry as a whole and a lot of these processes, even from the county boards, anything, it's very open arms, and that if you're willing to put the time in and want to be heard, people are willing to listen. I think that's the biggest takeaway to take from all of this. And it can be a little frightening, I think, for some people to want to get involved, but once you're involved, you realize everybody in the room's got the same problems and same concerns that you do, and there's strength in numbers with it. And you shouldn't be afraid to get involved and know others in this industry. It's definitely for your benefit.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Does anyone, Steve, have something to add? And then we'll.
Yeah, it's worthwhile noting that there are requirements. There are guidelines that the board goes through to be able to determine the eligibility of the commodity organization, whomever it is, it's a pretty extensive application that has to be gone through. So it's not just if you put an application, it's not automatically going to get approved. There's a process that you have to go through, and the board has to vote on it.
So, huge thanks to our speakers, but we're not done yet. We do have Q&A portion. So, first I'll ask if Fatima, do you have any other questions you want to ask before we move to the Q&A?
No, they're doing a good job. Thoroughly
Yes, it's doing
explaining.
really
Yeah.
well. Okay, so we have a couple questions that are in here already. So I'll take, Meg had asked, why do regulations at the county level often not align with state regulations? So because I guess the state Board of Ag doesn't issue or monitor regulations. It's a bit outside the scope, but if anyone wants to take that, I mean, we could try to take a shot at that. But maybe if Meg, if you want to add a little more to what you mean by that, but are we specifically talking about regulations in farming, or I think that's more outside the context of what the state Board of Ag has ability to influence, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Janine, I'm sorry, I'm not, when I'm looking at the Q&A, I'm not following the same.
So in the Q&A, there's 3 tabs at the top. One is open, one is answered, and one is dismissed. And so answered, I think because Jess had answered, I've responded, it moves to the answered column. So are you able to see that? Open, answered. And then for some reason you got muted, Lisa.
Okay. Yep. All right.
And so I don't know if anyone wants to try to answer that one. Yeah, that's the state board doesn't make regulations, right?
The state board doesn't make regulations, but the state board does an awful lot of work in responding to what we would consider frivolous regulations by particular agencies. The hard part is that we are part of the state governments. We need to be careful politically on what the position is by the executive branch. However, it emphasizes the importance of having a strong relationship with legislators more than anything else. And with various departments, we have representatives that sit that represent our department that are division directors that are responsible for different components of agriculture. Frank Minch is one that'll come to mind. There are a lot of folks are engaged with particular challenges with DEP. Perhaps Frank Minch has been at the department for 20 plus years, very well versed in the personnel and the issues and the people. And it's his responsibility to communicate back to us and also to work with constituents to help go through regulations. And it's our responsibility to communicate that back to our county boards as well as hear feedback from them. So although the state board doesn't make regulations, we are in a unique position and have a responsibility, frankly, to respond to regulations by our sister agencies and help educate them on how those particular rules or regulations that come in front of us could be detrimental to the industry.
Yeah, that's very well.
Yeah.
Threaded that needle very well.
I'd also like to answer the question about county rules not aligning with state rules. The county governments in New Jersey also don't have regulatory power. It's you know, we have a home rule state, 567 municipalities, each with their own governing body, their own boards, their own zoning, their own you know, laws and rules. The state government, when a law is passed, if there's a regulation to implement that law, those regulations are usually developed through the agency that the law is most pertinent to: Department of Agriculture, Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Community Affairs. They typically write the regulations. So if there's a county level of concern coming from the county board, or some other level at the county, and it's in conflict with a state regulation, then people at the county level should certainly, you know, talk to their legislators, their commissioners, talk to, you know, I'm not quite sure where this county state
Yeah, it might be a misunderstanding.
conflict is coming from. So in order to answer the question properly, maybe some specifics would help.
Yeah, counties don't really make regulations, is a good point. Yeah. Steve, you had something to add, and then we can pivot to the next question. And if folks have additional questions, I see other questions coming into the chat, so we'll try to get to as many of them as we can. Steve, did you
Just
have-
an advertisement for the Ag Convention, 3:30 on a Wednesday, I think it is. Assembly Ag Committee Chair Bill Spearman is going to be hosting a listening session. He's supposed to be listening. Farmers are supposed to be communicating with him what concerns they have. There will be several other legislators that are part of the Ag Committee that will be there. That's an opportunity for farmers to directly communicate with the guy that essentially oversees the Assembly Ag Committee in Trenton. Great opportunity to be able to speak your views.
Excellent. Okay. And like Steve said earlier, or Joel said earlier, I can't remember which, you know, you don't have to register or, you know, buy a ticket for if you're just going to the Ag Convention. And you're not going, you do have to buy a ticket if you're going to the fruit and vegetable growers sessions. Okay, so there's another person has asked, what is the role of Farm Bureau? And I guess what is Farm Bureau is really what they're asking. Is it equivalent to a labor union? No, it's more of an industry interest group, but I don't want to speak, you know, I'm not the expert. So anyone want to take that one? So they're a private organization, a 501c4, I would imagine, but I'm not positive.
Farm Bureau is our lobbying organization, very simply. Their responsibility is to lobby lawmakers, whether they're federal or state. As Jen had referenced earlier, the county boards of ags are all Farm Bureau members. And so the responsibility the Farm Bureau has is essentially to lobby on our behalf, to communicate with us what the legislature is doing, communicating with us what laws are potentially coming at us. So it's a relatively large responsibility, but in very simple terms, they're our lobbying organization for agriculture, all aspects of agriculture, by the way.
And it's membership based. Yeah.
And it should be noted that Farm Bureau is a national organization as well. So it's, you know, there's farm bureaus in every state, and so you have your local Farm Bureau and Farm Bureau officers and directors, and then there's, you know, national leadership to deal with federal issues that involve ag.
And as Jess mentioned earlier, typically there's a Farm Bureau staff person at every county board of ag meeting, which is helpful, right? They're trying to listen to hear what the issues are so that their lobbying efforts are informed by what they're hearing on the ground in the county board meetings. So Laura asked, can more than one delegate represent a county? I think that was already answered earlier. Yes. So it depends on, you know, their delegates through County Board of Ag. And then I think the other delegates are not geographically specific, right? They're more topically.
It's commodity based.
Commodity based.
Or
Okay. So
organizational.
Okay, commodity or organizational. Do you want to give us some one or two examples, Lisa, just in case people don't know what that?
Me on the spot.
So maybe like, okay, I remember from the first time I went and I was absorbing this all, like, okay, so for example, I remember there being like a sweet potato growers
Yeah, exactly.
association.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, the
The
sweet potato
Thoroughbred
growers.
Breeders
Potato growers.
Association and
Yeah.
yeah, the sheep and wool organizations and yeah, any organization, you know, that has applied for and been accepted as a part of the delegation can send a delegate. So it's
Right.
very varied.
And it has to meet the requirements. And I can put a link on our website to where the requirements are of being a delegate, but like the Christmas Tree Growers Association, the equestrian, you know, it's a sector of the agricultural sector at large. So it's not really geographically linked other than the county boards of ag, as far as I know. Lisa, I think you may have accidentally raised your hand again, but if not, go ahead.
Yeah, I did. One thing that just came to mind when we were talking, when we were
Lisa, you're on mute. I think.
unmuted. Oh, is that okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
Go
I
ahead.
was using my space bar and maybe I didn't push hard enough, sorry. There's also representatives from the Farm Service Agency at the county boards of agriculture, and they're a wealth of information too for maybe beginning farmers to figure out how they can connect with programs that are available for grants and cost share through the federal Farm Bill programs, NRCS, and so that they're also they also attend and give a report at every month at the county board meetings. So
Yeah.
you know, the whole cadre of resources is there to help, and just don't be intimidated to show up and learn and ask questions.
Right, that's good. Okay, so Natasha asked, what's the likelihood of a county? So she's asking about counties that are, I guess, less agricultural land, Hudson, Essex, Union. Do they have county boards of agriculture? And if they don't, if a county doesn't have a county board of agriculture, I don't know if that's true for any counties, if they don't have a county board of ag, but what would be the way to try to get one, I guess, if your county doesn't have one? And I guess maybe the first question would be, are there any counties that don't have county boards of ag?
Not sure on that.
Yeah, okay, so we can get back to you on that one, Natasha. I know there are some counties that don't have county ag development boards, but that's a totally different thing. And maybe that's something we should answer right now. What is the difference between the county? So the county board of agriculture, like we've already said, is a private non-governmental club essentially that has its own bylaws. It's not affiliated with government. There's a Farm Bureau affiliation for most of them, which Farm Bureau is a lobbying organization. County ag development boards are part of county government. They are officially part of county government, and they work on farmland preservation and right to farm issues. And so we don't have, we have roughly 15 minutes left, but maybe it's worth taking a couple of minutes just to talk about what a county ag development board is, since we've already talked about what county boards of agriculture are. Does anyone want to take that one? What is a county ag development board?
Yeah, I serve on Gloucester County's County Ag Development Board. So, and like you were saying, it is two different things entirely because it is more of a government thing, and we do play a role in, preservation. It almost has like a zoning board type feel to it, but I wouldn't go that far. But it's also, you're going to hear from the public on, right to farm issues. We just at our last meeting had somebody from SADC, no, 2 meetings ago, from SADC about the next gen farm program and how to implement that and how that works out. We also just did our county's ag development plan and decided, certain parcels that should be in and shouldn't be in, and you're dealing with a little bit more of a of how the development of the ag ground affects the farmers, and necessarily financially it's a little bit different, where the rubber kind of hits the road a little bit more there with people. And we also will deal with like legal issues as well. Like we've had in Gloucester County a few farms that structures were built outside of the exception area, and resolving that as well. So there's a whole host of things, and yeah, it is definitely a whole different thing than the County Board of Ag. So
yeah, thank you for that. And just before we get to the next question, I'm going to put something in the chat that the Food Democracy Collaborative developed last year. We get a lot of these questions, and myself and other people involved in NJFDC often have some of these questions. And when I started to get into this work, I didn't know any of this. So I had to figure it out, and it was really helpful to have it all in one place. So we finished this last year. It's a long link, but it's our oh, what's it called? New Jersey Food Citizens Grassroots Advocacy Guide, and it covers all these topics. It defines all of these terms. It breaks everything down at the local, county, state level, and so it's very comprehensive. There's videos in there that teach you how to use the state legislative website. And so I thought this is a good time to plug that document, because we do cover a lot of these topics in there, and it's all laid out in black and white, and there's links to wherever you need to go. So I encourage people to dive into that, maybe one section at a time. It's very comprehensive, and we are going to be building out a 4-part webinar series that sort of goes deeper into each of those topic areas. So there's that in the chat. Okay, so we have about a little more than 10 minutes, and scrolling through Fatima or any of our guests if you want to take one of these questions. So so someone's asking, we keep saying that this convention is next week, but when is the convention? And so does anyone want to talk about what are the exact dates and locations of the different things we've been talking about, which are co-located, the agriculture convention and the fruit and vegetable growers convention?
We can refer to our convention committee chair, Mr. Viereck, on that one.
Yeah, so it all will kick off next week at Harrah's, February 3rd at Harrah's. That's there's some things there that will start for the vegetable grower side of it. I'm not 100% sure of their agenda, but I'll have some offerings Monday. Then I know on Tuesday they have a social at night. Their convention kicks off earlier that day. Their sessions are pretty packed, I believe, through Tuesday and Wednesday. Then on the state side, the agenda, I just got that a while ago. We have our state board meeting will be on the 4th. Then we have the delegate session will then kick off I believe it's at 2:00 on Wednesday, and then we have a full day of delegates of resolutions on Thursday. There is a banquet Wednesday night that has we'll have a keynote speaker there. We give out a few awards. This year we're giving out the Outstanding Young Farmer is Zach Hyken from Salem County. Brian Porch also from Salem County, won Vegetable Grower of the Year. And then our distinguished services to Richard Bima, John Rigoloso Jr., and past secretary Doug Fisher will be honored at the banquet that night. So that's a brief overview of what's going on. But yeah, it will be from February 3rd till February 6th.
Right, and then the actual part of the convention where the resolutions are happening, the resolutions are happening and all that, the part of it that delegates go to that does not require a registration fee, that is on just the 6th and 7th, is that right?
No, 5th and 6th.
5th and 6th, and everything happens at Harrah's Hotel Casino in Atlantic City.
Yes.
Okay, so
I just posted that in the chat as well.
Okay.
The convention program.
Okay, that link just went to the panelists and hosts, so I'm going to just copy it and move it to everyone.
Gotcha.
And so you'll have that. Thank you. So there's a question here that I think I'm going to read out loud. It's because the state board doesn't have regulatory power, is the role of policy agenda setting / resolutions that happens at the convention, is it more of a guidance of what they'd like to recommend to legislators as a unified body? I think that's accurate, but would you concur with that? It's a agenda setting, right?
I think that sums it up.
That's
That's
accurate.
good description. Whoever
That's
did
a very
that.
good description. Yeah. That's the process that the Food Democracy Collaborative is going through right now. We have our policy and legislative agenda for 2025, and we're circulating it through our working groups and our advisory board to make sure everyone's on board with it, and then we'll put it out publicly. And that's actually the topic of our next Lunch and Learn. So we'll get to that in a second. Laura Cole asked the question is about county ag development boards. How are they created for counties that don't currently have one? So there are some counties that don't have county ag development boards. And Actually, we're working on a fact sheet right now on that exact topic, Laura, with some of our colleagues in spaces that, you know more about that than I do necessarily. So that's something that we will put a fact sheet out about very soon, but I don't know if anyone is familiar. It's quite different than, like Joel was saying, it's a different mechanism entirely than the county boards of ag and the state board of agriculture. So it might be outside of the wheelhouse of those on this call, but if anyone does know how county ag development boards, new ones can be created in those counties that don't have one. If not, I can try to follow up some additional information.
One other thing to note about the county ag development boards, it's another one of those that they are public meetings. And if any public does want to go and sit and just learn about it, you're always, I mean, the meeting dates are always published, and they can go and start to learn and see what goes on. And that's how the whole process starts. You start to show up, just even as a public member, just showing up to the meetings, you'll learn something, and then through your ag, county ag board, you may someday get appointed to that if it's something you choose to do. I mean, that was the route I took to get to it. So all this comes back to just putting the time in and just putting yourself out there a little bit and getting involved. Showing up
And volunteering. I always tell my kids half of life is just showing up. I think it's more than half, actually.
Yeah.
So that I don't see any new questions in the chat. I mean, someone asked a question about grants, but I'm not exactly sure what grants they're referring to, because the county board of ag. Well, I mean, so maybe we could talk a little bit about that. Does the county board of ag have their own grants? Do you issue requests for proposals, or do you manage grant programs, or how does that work?
I don't believe that the county boards of ag have grant. They don't.
So like the state
do
Department
give
of Agriculture.
scholarships. I believe the county boards of ag often give scholarships.
Yes, we give.
Yeah,
we do give scholarships.
Yeah.
Yeah, scholarships, but not grants.
No grants.
Right. And if the Department of Agriculture, if the New Jersey Department of Agriculture has an open grant process, like specialty crop block grants, let's say, that's through the State Department. And there is some role that the state board plays, and I think reviewing those proposals to some degree, but they're not grants of the State Board of Ag, if that makes sense. Am I speaking correctly on that?
We do have the chair of our grants committee on here, Steve, so you could probably speak to that.
The grants, especially crop block grant, is a grant that comes from the USDA, comes in the department. It's a responsibility of the grants subcommittee of the state board to go through all of the applications and award grantees the money based on their applications. We do that with especially crop block grant. We're about to do it with LFPA, perhaps coming up relatively soon. That's a little bit different than what we've done historically. The gleaning grants come through our department. We have 2 fellows that work on our grants team within the department that do a lot of the administrative work, but the execution of that goes through the state board grants committee.
And to add to that, though, personally, I feel that part of us as state board members being liaisons to the county boards, again, the county boards don't administer grants or anything along those lines, but it is our job, not our job, but it's something that I feel is important to make the people on the county boards aware of what grants are coming in, how they're, any information that maybe they should be signing up or anything along those lines, because it does go. If a lot of farmers don't know that this is available, they'll never apply for it. They won't get involved with it. And that's just, again, part of the showing up part of this, and then hearing what's going on. There is a lot to offer out there to ag. And, definitely if you're in the industry with the grants, and something that the information will get disseminated to these meetings through the state board members that are aware of anything that, needs to go in conjunction with the Department of Ag does put out there on their website and Facebook and stuff that they share.
Exactly. Okay. Alicia Newcomb from Atlantic is talking about Atlantic County. I think that went to the Q&A. She's saying the county executive in your county government. is a great place to start to ask about what meetings you should attend for whatever you're interested in or advocating for. And that goes, you know, past agriculture, just any issue you're interested in. You can go to your county commissioners, your county executive, even their administrative assistant. You can ask what bodies exist in the county that I should be involved with, and how do I get involved with them. And like I think Joel said earlier, maybe it was Jess, that if it's agriculture related, going to your Rutgers Cooperative Extension County agent is another great place to start, to say, like, how do I get involved in these things? Can you tell me when the meetings are? Can you connect me to the president so I can get the Zoom link? Like that kind of thing. That's how I got involved in my my county board of ag. So we are about 4 minutes left. I don't see any other questions. So I'm just going to take a second to, thank all of our speakers for taking the time to do this. They are very busy people, and they have a big event coming up with the convention next week, as we've been talking about. So thank you very, very much for your time. I am going to take this one last second to plug our next Lunch and Learn that is happening in March. So hopefully you can see this, and there's a QR code there. March 5th from 12 to 1:30, so a little bit earlier. The topic is going to be NJFTC's 2025 policy and legislative priorities, and also, as many of you know, or maybe not, maybe just a few of you know, that in 2022, New Jersey Food Democracy Collaborative summarized over a year, well, about a year's worth of community meetings, listening sessions with farmers and folks across the food supply chain to hear what their concerns and priorities are in the food system. And we put out in 2022 the NJ Roadmap for Food System Resilience as a sort of summary of those listening sessions. And there are 52 action recommendations that we put out in 2022. So we are wrapping up a process of doing a sort of a progress report on those 52 priority actions to show you all sort of where they're at, which have been implemented, which have had no progress, and anywhere in between. And we've added some new recommendations. We've edited some of the ones from 2022 that there's been an evolution and improvement in our knowledge and thinking on. And so that's going to be coming out as well, and we'll do an overview of that at that March meeting. And so we look forward to having a great interested audience there. And that's all we have for you today. So